Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my podcast called The Free Agent, where the discussion is all about taking control over your future and becoming a business owner. The mission of my show is to share inspiring conversations with real people who took the leap into self-employment, business ownership, sometimes franchising, but we're all looking for a certain kind of freedom. From corporate refugees and executives tired of the desk job to entrepreneurs and investors looking to share camaraderie and support in their own personal journey, my podcast aims to spotlight on real people who stepped into the unknown, took control of their destiny, and became their own boss. Today, my guest is Mark Zucker. And Mark and I are participants in a Wednesday morning mastermind networking meeting. We've gotten to know each other fairly well here over the last what's it been, 8 to 10 months that we've been in the Zoom format. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Meg.
So I really wanted Mark to come on because he's got his own personal journey of getting into entrepreneurship that started, of course, it always does, at an early age. And so, Mark, rather than me telling the listeners what it is that you do, why don't you talk about an overview of your two businesses, but also how you got started?
Great. So I graduated college with an advertising degree and thought I was going to set the advertising world on fire. So I started at a mid-sized New York City agency, was a little disheartened to start out as a secretary because that was the only job available. Worked my way into junior copywriter, and then 18 months into this job, our agency lost a third of our business. We had one large account, and I was offered to leave. So my dad had a wedding album manufacturing business also in New York. He had just expanded, and he said to me, while you're looking for a job, why don't you help me out? I could use an extra pair of hands. And what was fortuitous about that is he was also my first advertising client. I was cutting my teeth on writing ads for his company and going to trade shows and trying to learn the business. So when I came in, I at least had a working knowledge, maybe a third or a fourth grade knowledge of it. And then from there, I ended up staying 7.5 years and just fell in love with it and got to do some really cool things. I ultimately moved to Chicago, started a separate wedding album company called Zucker. This was in '95. So it's been around 26 years. And for the first 15 years, it was amazing. The industry was growing, we were growing. And then all of a sudden, digital technology just completely disrupted our industry. Yeah. So we went from a company with 100 plus employees and 20 to 30% year over year growth to flat to organically declining 5 to 10%, which was quite a shock. And so about 10 years ago, when I was having my end of the year planning meeting with my COO, who is now my wife and business partner, I said to her, well, we can no longer raise prices. Our demand is down. Clients are downgrading from our most expensive products to our least expensive products. I feel like we have 1.5 years of runway and then we're in big trouble. Yeah. And she said to me, I have an idea. She says, I'm Filipino. I said, yeah, what does that mean? And she says, well, we can outsource a lot of our work to the Philippines. And so that started our journey of taking 25 office positions and moving 20 of them overseas during a period of 3 to 4 years. So 10 years later, we're still viable, we're still profitable. And if we didn't make this shift, we probably would have closed up 4 or 5 years ago. So we got into outsourcing as a defensive model because we had really no choice. And then after doing this for quite some time and having some others ask us about it, we would get asked, how come you guys are still at trade shows? You're still having these big shiny booths. Everything looks good. You're not stressed. While, all of us are going out of business and bleeding. And I said, we have a real secret weapon. It's called outsourcing. So everyone's like, well, how do I get in on this? What's it like? And I didn't really feel comfortable referring to them to the companies we worked with because honestly, they weren't that good. Mm-hmm. And that, coupled with the fact that every time Cherry, my business partner, went to the Philippines to visit and take our team out to lunch, before they left, they would walk up to her, whisper in her ear, and thank her and say, by the way, Miss Cherry, we're not treated so well here. If you ever wanted to start your own company, we've already talked among ourselves. We would all leave in a nanosecond to come work for you.
Wow.
So after hearing this for about 3 separate lunches. She came back from her trip 5 years ago and said, I think it's time we start our own outsource business. So now we're in the outsource business. We still have the wedding album business, but our main focus is helping other businesses reduce cost by providing a remote workforce.
And what a great time to pivot into that, the pandemic giving us a left hook that none of us saw coming. Well, you had already had that struggle and trying to stay viable. How many years prior was that digital really disrupted your wedding album business?
10, 11 years ago is when we really started feeling it.
So you've been conditioned over the last decade or so to pivot and to think differently.
Yes. Yeah, and actually what's been a blessing is, even though, and I hate to use the word blessing and pandemic in the same sentence because it's far from a blessing. It's obviously, it's been more destructive than a blessing, but it did really give the outsourcing business a boost because pre-pandemic, our biggest obstacle was in talking to business owners, they'd say, this sounds great. I would love to reduce some operating costs. However, I'm a little concerned about having a remote workforce. I really like my team. We're all in the same building. We can eat lunch together. We can have spontaneous meetings. Well, that pretty much vanished over the past year.
So this has got to be a fascinating position for you to be observing how your clients are pivoting. Has there been have your sales escalated then during the pandemic?
They have. Now, we're a 4-year-old company. And really the first 2 years, we didn't do any promotion. We were just onboarding our wedding album staff and just wanted to make sure we really perfected and understood the model. So we've only been growing for 2 years. And when the pandemic hit, it was just rocket fuel. I mean, it hit us, fast and furious. Yeah. And, not the first couple of months, obviously, but when things started coming back, we were getting calls from business owners going, okay, we were not in such great shape pre-pandemic. PPP money has been great. It's, given us a little bit of a lifeline, but there's just no way we're going to maintain full staff when we get back. So we've seen, every month we onboard more clients than we did the prior month.
And so the businesses that you are onboarding and working with, you see entrepreneurs, you see LLCs, you probably have some big companies, and then you and I were talking a little bit ago about franchising as well. Are there, from where you sit, are there certain industries or types of businesses that are really gravitating to your outsourcing?
The service business has always been steady, but they really haven't been impacted that much by the pandemic. It's been a lot of manufacturers, distributors, companies that have fixed overhead that are just stuck with a cost structure that they really can't reduce, or they've already reduced it as much as they can.
Yeah. So
we feel like we've gotten the biggest hit from them, but we've also done a lot of work for startups. We have a company that does, they organize and manage the records for college students' immunizations. So every time a freshman signs up, there's 2 to 4 immunizations they need. It's something that most universities don't want to deal with. There's a startup that connected with us that said, we're just doing a ton of manual data entry. There's no way to automate this. And every month they just keep adding staff because their business is growing. So it's just been a myriad of startups, existing established businesses, service businesses, you name it.
Yeah, and I saw the same thing in franchising where there was this immediate pivot into, talk about leaning into technology and making sure that that virtual platform was an effective platform. You think back to that mindset as a business owner. I had that mindset as a business owner. I wasn't going to transmit my accounting records via the cloud, and then it was forced upon us. So there are companies like yours, like virtual bookkeeping, virtual tutoring, companies that have just gone through the roof, drinking from a fire hose because the demand has gone up so much. Do you have a measurable on that? Do you have a metric of what your year over year or month over month growth has been?
The last 3-4 months have been off the charts. I'm not entirely sure why. A lot of it is we've had We onboarded a lot of new clients during the pandemic. They would start with one, maybe a bookkeeper or a data entry person, after 2 to 3, and they're always a little skeptical initially. After a few months, their calls up, hey, this is working out well. Can you help us with customer service? And so what we've seen in the last 3 months is half of the new seats that we've onboarded, and that's our term for a full-time person, a seat, have been existing clients that have added more staff.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you've got a business model, and now my brain is going, whether it's replicable, can we duplicate this and turn it into a franchise? Because I imagine that there are some predictable elements of the business that from one client to the next, you're essentially onboarding the same position.
Right.
Interesting. Very interesting. So as a business owner who has, through multiple businesses, had to make pivots, are there any best practices that you are carrying over, say, from the last decade when you had to pivot with digital? Is there any similarity between then and now?
So I've decided that until I retire, which will probably be never, I will always think of any business I'm in as a startup. And the reason for that is when you're in startup mode, you're really open to listening to the market. And you have your business plan, and maybe it's 60, 80% baked. And then the market pushes you in different directions. And so when you maintain the startup mentality, it just forces you not to build processes that can't change. It forces you to be nimble. So that's kind of how we look at it. We got an inquiry a few months ago from somebody in the medical billing world. And we said to them straight up, we've never done this, full transparency. And they said, great, we're happy about that because we're working with other companies that already have this established and we have to fit into their model. The fact that you've never done this, we can build a new model together the way we want to do it, meaning them. So that was great. I mean, and so now we're in medical billing and it's a great business and we're learning about it. And the next time somebody else contacts us about it, we'll be a better vendor for them.
And that's an interesting shift in your mindset. It's genius. It's the way really that it probably ought to be. Just as we talk about on our Wednesday morning mastermind, the less, well, I guess we were talking about structure last week and how beneficial structure is, but also talk about lean in and listen to your client and what they want. Then you don't get stuck. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and structure is great for processes. I mean, every company needs to have strong processes that are repeatable and that everybody's aware of. But I feel like from a business development and product offering standpoint, the more nimble you can be, and that's what's great about a website. Back in the day, you would print a price list and you'd send it out and you were stuck with that for the year. Today, if the world changes at 3 p.m., you can go and update your website, add a new service, change a price, and there you go.
Beautiful. So with your clientele now shifting and growing, are there success stories that you can share with the listeners about either how you have helped a client or how a client has grown exponentially because of the support that you offer?
So I had a monthly check-in with this client that does student immunizations. And because his business is booming, he's preparing for August, which is the beginning of college season, their volume surges. And he said to me, I got to compliment your company. You have removed one of the 3 biggest problems that I've had since we started, which was we can't hire interns fast enough to do the data entry. And now I just call you and say, I need 2 more June 1st. I need 3 more July 1st. And I don't have to do the recruiting. I don't have to do the interviewing or the training. We've set up a model for him where we have team leads. We handle the training. Literally, all he has to do is say, I need more. And he can now focus on growing his business so that, next year is just as good as this year. What we're hearing a lot from clients is there's really 2 types of companies that come to us. One is we're struggling, we need to reduce costs, and they're usually very motivated to work with us. Then there's the other company that says, we're growing. And the more we can fuel our growth with internal capital as opposed to borrowing or taking on equity partners, we're a lot stronger. So, I call those the springboard clients. They're growing and they've realized that a lot of the jobs that we can help them with, like bookkeeping, can be done anywhere. I mean, QuickBooks Online outsells QuickBooks Desktop, and there's a reason for that. A lot of people are working from home. Owners are from home. Accountants and controllers are from home. So just having that mindset at the start of, okay, I'm going to keep my costs down because that's going to give me more oxygen to grow. It's a win-win. And then from there, they usually start with one, and then they'll add HR, they'll add software developers. It's just been really interesting. We have some clients that have 5 different functions that we're supporting.
Perfect. And you just brought up a springboard into another topic, which is working from home, and what a great opportunity that is for people who are listening, who are going to continue to work from home or do the hybrid. The ability for you in your business to expand, or anyone listening, really, for them to be able to jump into their side hustle or another income generating business opportunity. And so you had some observations and comments about that. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. So, Meg, as you and I have become friendly and I've learned more about your business, and I feel like I'm constantly interrogating you because I used to always think of franchising as, buying a McDonald's franchise. And as you've illuminated me, it's home services and fitness gyms and all kinds of, and haircuts. I never even realized that, many of the companies that you're involved with are even franchises. So what I feel like as I think about franchising, I feel like the pandemic has opened up doors to those that are looking to do something entrepreneurial, always wanted to. They now have more time. For one, they're working from home. And if you live in a big city like we do in Chicago, or in a city with terrible commuting, you now have 2 to 3 hours back every day, which is 2 to 3 hours that just grinds you down. So if you're a work from home, you could either get your work done early and have 3-4 hours every day to work on your side hustle. And I feel like with franchising, especially some of the opportunities that you offer, which are not owner operator McDonald's, where you're going to be working 16 hours a day for the first 2 years, it's really the optimal time for somebody to take a flyer and start dipping their toe in the water of a side hustle / franchise without giving up their day job, which they still need to pay the bills.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what franchising is all about. From my point of view, unless you're somebody who's looking to replace a job, if you have a job, now is a good time to be keeping that job. It's not necessarily secure, but what does provide security is that work from home time frame that you can now fill with something that is financially rewarding. And so yes, to your point, franchising is so much more than food. And you had a story that you related via email about someone with whom you may be under contract shortly out in California. Want to give a little snippet on that individual?
Yes. So spoke to a gentleman who's got a couple of fitness stores or fitness gyms in California, and he was looking for some bookkeeping help. And he's got 3 currently, and he's planning on opening up a 4th and then a 5th. And he says, I feel like I'm at the time now. And this is a franchise too that supposedly is providing a dashboard and some software to make life easier, but apparently it's pretty dated. And a lot of the multiple store franchisors are just doing their own thing. And he's a guy who really wants data. He wants to know every day on a minute basis, how many new joins, how many cancellations, what's our cash flow and payment like? And so his accounting needs have grown. And he said, I'm reaching out because I need somebody full time and I don't want to be doing this. It's mostly data entry. So here's a guy which, I hope we move forward with him because he needs the help. He was originally thinking it's data entry. And by the end of our conversation, we can start with data entry, but this person can take bookkeeping off your plate. And now you don't have to hire a bookkeeper that he was paying, a good amount of money through a service.
And to your point also is now this also frees up his time to continue to expand his business. If he's operating 3, he's a good operator. And like so many other franchise owners, they're looking to unload at a lower price than what their time is worth to continue to build. And so this is a perfect opportunity for him to do that expansion, because you're taking some of that load off that I'm sure he doesn't want to be doing that kind of work.
You're 100% right. And another thought that I had related to this was, because of the whole work from home, everybody's hours have become a little skewed, right? If your office was 8 to 5, it was understood you need to be there 8 to 5. Now, when you're working from home, I feel like the general consensus is, as an owner, I don't care when you work. If you're customer facing, you need to be available. But if you're not customer facing, as long as you get your work done, we're happy. So that also makes it easier for somebody to invest more time in a side hustle, in trying something, because there's times where during the business day, you have to get some of that work done.
Yep. So thinking back for you, how long have you been an entrepreneur?
Since I started delivering the New York Post when I was 10 years old.
Oh,
No, I figured out a long time ago. I mean, I did a lot of awful summer jobs, and I can't say I had really many good bosses. And my thought was, I always seemed to make more money and be a lot happier when I could control my destiny. Now, as a kid, teenager, high school, college, the word entrepreneur was foreign. I mean, who knew what it meant? But really what I was doing was just figuring out ways where I could control my destiny. And to me, that was always very appealing.
well, and that's a perfect embodiment of a side hustle. Your main job back then was to become educated and gravitate into a career that you'd be able to monetize. But here you're working a side job where you were able to take your time. It didn't bother with school. It didn't disrupt your primary job. And this is what we want our kids to do. At least I did when he was younger. My son's now 31. But to expand the young mind to think dynamically, not just unilaterally. We are not job. You should have more aspiration and financial orientation to diversify, particularly now for the reasons you just stated, but also because the job market is not security.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing a lot of college students or fresh grads. My younger son is 2 years out of school, and I watched him and some of his friends. And, most people are severely disappointed by entry-level jobs. They're used to being creative and really managing their own life, and then suddenly going to work for somebody and doing something that they feel is either mundane or beneath their skill set. And we didn't think that way because we didn't know any better. We were just happy to have a job and wow, this is exciting. And people are dressed up here and we feel like adults, and we never really questioned it. And I think there's a lot of disillusionment there too. So having a side hustle, I feel like from a mental health standpoint, is really healthy, even if it's not something you monetize, just something to do. I mean, it's easier today than ever to, if you have some technical skills, you can build a website in an hour and whatever you want to do with it. So I feel like there's just some good other benefits to, somebody who's just punching the clock and feel like they're being total, a cog in the wheel for 8 hours a day. Now they have an opportunity to do something different that potentially could be more viable too.
And it is fascinating to me how many people go into a career, they study extensively to get a particular degree, only to find out that's not who they really are or what they want to do. And all the better then to be doing something else that you do love, because there may be that time that you realize your chosen career sucks and it sucks the life out of you. So it's good for individuals to do art classes or dance or whatever it might be to keep those different channels alive and tap into them when the working world gets you down. Now it is the perfect time to create a diversification strategy. And I don't care if it's a franchise or an independent business. You're talking about mental health And we've seen a lot of challenges, not only in the pandemic, but 2008 to 11. Holy smokes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now's the perfect time to do all that. So I feel like this is a great time for anybody who has 1% entrepreneur in their blood. It's easier than ever. It's risk-free. If you're married, your spouse isn't going to flip out because you're not quitting your job. You're just dabbling. And there's so many opportunities to dabble.
Yeah. Yeah. Dabbling with intensity, intent also, not just intensity, but dabbling with intent for it to become financially rewarding if you're looking for that kind of thing. And finding the mentors to surround you, which is what we have with the mastermind group. Mentors who will push you and help you refine what it is that you're going, what is your why? What are you going after? What pain are you trying to eliminate or solve? Mark, are there specific support systems or mentors over the years, let's say prior to the mastermind group? Who have you turned to as an entrepreneur when you were stuck?
So I was in a peer advisory group for about 15 years, pre-outsourcing, when our wedding album business was going full throttle. We used to meet monthly, and I was the smallest business owner in the group in terms of revenue size. And it was great having 5 or 6 others in the room that I could go to for advice, ask questions, because unless you're an entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, you need to talk to other business owners. It's really different. What I've also done too is I read a lot. I'm a big podcaster, and I feel like my 30-minute ride each way is my mobile classroom. And I'm listening to books, and I'm listening to different viewpoints and ideas. And a lot of times that's where ideas and, it's kind of like virtual mentoring.
Yeah.
But I found that to be really beneficial.
Yeah. And it's good for you that you have a partner who you're in alignment with. Are there any challenges, or is it just a great opportunity that the two of you are married and in business together?
It's actually great. She would always joke during a bad month, are we sure we want to do this together? We're sure we want to put all of our eggs in the basket. And I said, well, I like doing it, for a lot of reasons. One, I love her to death and I love being with her. But if you look at if you've ever taken a DISC profile, where you get all these charts and they rate you on the D, I, S, and C, her and I could not be more opposite. I mean, we should really frame our two side by side. And we're not only opposite personalities, but in terms of our division of responsibilities, we met at our wedding album company, and she took over operations. And she's great at all the things that I'm not great at. And the things that I gravitate towards, sales, marketing, finance, she really has no interest. I'm the extrovert, and she's like, well, do I really have to get on this Zoom call? And I'm always, texting her, please put your camera on. Whereas that's never been a problem with me. I was doing Zoom before it was even fashionable. It's like, let's talk live. So we really have a great partnership in that we took what we built in the wedding album business. I'm more customer facing, sales, marketing, product development. And then, or as she would joke, my job is to bring in business and disrupt things. And her job is to put things back in order and make them run impeccably. And we do the same thing in the outsource business. I mostly talk to new clients. And the reason why we're able to keep, the reason why clients keep adding a second, third, and fourth seat is because she focuses on the service levels and makes sure that we're really tight in understanding their business, meeting their metrics, checking in with them to see if there is a problem. Let's address it right away. So I have full confidence knowing that if somebody comes on board, she's going, I'm going to hand it off to her and her team, and they're going to do a wonderful job. So long answer is we love working together. We work very well together, mostly because of division of responsibility. Well, respect and a whole bunch of other reasons, but we're really in different things and we stay out of each other's way.
Nice. I have had the best time over the last year working in the same building with my husband, who's downstairs. I'm upstairs. He has the best poker face. Like he'll come up here to make lunch, and I'm not really sure if he's growling or, but he has that business growl face. So I don't know if he's happy or what's going on. So I just let him, kind of like you're saying, he works over there and does his stuff. I work over here and I do my stuff, but we're in business together in a number of different businesses. Same thing, division of labor and respect. And it's really been a lovely opportunity here over the last 15 months to have a more concentrated time together and be able to go home at night and open a bottle of wine. And we took the boat out on the lake last night to watch the sunset. And because we don't talk that much about business during the day, it doesn't govern our marriage. And so, yeah, division of labor is a beautiful thing.
I was listening to your last week's podcast with Basil and his family business. And, that's something too that, you hear from some people, oh my God, I could never work with my husband, my wife, et cetera. And I'm not here to judge, but I feel like if you can manage things well at home and you're very clear on who's good at what and what the other one doesn't need to do so you can cover your blind spots, it can be a really powerful combination if you go into business together and you're business partners.
Yeah.
Nobody has the full skill set.
So, Mark, we're coming to the end of our period of time together here. I would love for you to let the audience know how they can find you for this or that. So why don't you go ahead and give the names of your companies and contact information in order to reach you directly?
Sure. So the outsourced business is called MCVO, Mary Charles Victor Oscar Talent.com. And we're based here in Chicago. Our talent is based in the Philippines, but all the communications and initial conversations happen through there. Happy to talk to anybody who's curious about it, exploring it, not sure if it's for them. I love getting on Zoom and meeting new people and seeing if we can help. And then for the other business, it's a wedding album manufacturing business that only works with professional photographers, which is a real small niche. But our company is Zuckbinders. It's spelled like bookbinders, but with the letter Z. So it would be zuckbinders.com.
Perfect. Well, this has been most enjoyable. I have, over the last 6 or 8 months, really enjoyed getting to know you. And it was really good, really great last week to be in person and be able to do the hug for real. So thanks for the hug back. And I'll look for you next Wednesday morning. But thank you again for your time today and sharing your thoughts and wisdom with the audience.
Thank you, Meg. I love your business model. I love how you help other entrepreneurs, and I will continue to support it any way I can.